All right, I need the crowd to be excited. I know we had a long day so far. Who's ready to hear from Stephen A. Smith? I feel like that's not loud enough. Who is ready to hear from Stephen A. Smith? Awesome, but we know what first we got to introduce the moderator. So many of you guys know Victor Demesmin as the founder, one of the co-founders and managing partner of Demesmin in Dover. But he is also the chief business officer and CEO and founder of White Cloud Media and All In Management Group, which is a local Black-owned sports agency that represents the likes of two-time Super Bowl champ Jason Pierre-Paul, Channing Crowder, and BKFC heatherweight champion Howard Davis, just to name a few. But most importantly, Victor is my friend. We met in my last year of law school. He wanted to come back. He was at LSU. He decided to take a transfer year, his last year, and that is how we've met. And we have been seeing each other grow in both our businesses. Has been so monumental. He has always been a staunch supporter of the organization, beyond just being the sponsor, but just being a great mentor and a staunch community leader in our community. He's a proud Haitian American, hence why the DJ was dropping a bit. But he is he's a husband, he's a father, he is a friend to so many. And so without further ado, I also want you guys to give a loud round of applause for Victor Demesmin Jr.
Demesmin and Dover Law Firm. Woo! Woo! Look, I be riding through my old hood, but I'm in my new whip. Same old attitude, but I'm on that new stuff.
Kanasha, am I introducing Stephen A? All right. Well, can I get everybody to stand up? Because I think this is a big moment. We got Stephen A here. This guy, you guys see him all over ESPN. He's the face of ESPN, been doing it for over 30 years. You know, somebody that I look up to. He's killing the game right now. A man. He picked the wrong frat. He did Omega Psi Phi, but that's another day. Another day, we'll talk about that. But can you guys please give a warm welcome to Stephen A. Smith.
Let's get it cracking. Let's start the session. Mars list the competition, balls by that action. You can never Stephen A with the flavor, big Stephen A with the flavor, big Stephen A with the flavor, big Stephen A with 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 Stephen A.
What up?
My brother, Stephen A. Smith.
What's up, my man? How you doing?
Father, author, the face of ESPN,
Yep.
Black NBA analyst, been killing the game for 30 years. Hollis, Queens, New York, born in the Bronx, just turned 56. Sorry to give you age, but you look good for 56, so they gotta know.
My brother,
56, so.
My brother, I'm 56. I wish I was 76. I wouldn't want to be young in today's generation to save my life, but I'm good.
Yeah, so.
I'm good.
I mean, take us back, man. Hollis, Queens, New York. Did you visualize all of this, man? You know, millions of people watching you, #1 sports show 10 years in a row. Did you visualize this when you were that small, what was it, that shooting guard in Hollis, Queens, New York? Did you visualize all this?
No, I didn't. In all honesty, I knew there were going to be roadblocks, and you, black man, growing up in the streets of New York City. I'm lucky to be here. I'm lucky to be alive. To be honest with you, half of my friends are dead. About a quarter of them are in jail. So I was one of the fortunate ones. I happen to have the greatest mother I think anybody could ever have. God rest her soul. I got 4 beautiful older sisters. I now got 15 nieces and nephews, and you know, all of that stuff. And I've been surrounded by love a lot of times in my life, regardless of the challenges that came my way. And so for me, I expected success, but I'd be lying if I said I expected this. I didn't see this happening. I knew that I was going to do what I do, but I didn't know that the fruits of my labor would be as exorbitant as they've been. So I've been very, very much blessed by the grace of God to have achieved all of those things.
And I mean, some of those things that we talked about, like I said, you being a father, you know, you doing your thing on ESPN. Is there anything that you can think back and you're like, man, that's probably the proudest thing that I've done in my life, 56 years old. You know, you've accomplished a lot. Is there something that sticks out to you the most that's like, wow, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe, you know?
It's a couple of things. I think that ultimately me being named a general sports columnist by the Philadelphia Inquirer in March of 2003 was a huge moment, because I think that a lot of people don't realize, especially in this day and age, you look at the advent of social media, you look at the dot-com boom that has taken fold and what have you. You know, that era is when a lot of people, everybody had an opinion and everybody could express their opinion. But if you go back and you look historically at the newspaper industry, there were like 1,600 major metropolitan newspapers throughout the country. There were very, very few who happened to be black journalists. And so when you elevate to a columnist position, that gives you a license to opine and express your opinions and your thoughts. There were only 20 people in American history who happened to be black that had the license to be a general sports columnist. I was number 21 in 2003. So that was a major, major accomplishment for me. The other thing for me was 2005. I had gotten to ESPN in October of 2003. A year and a half later, Mark Shapiro, then the head of ESPN, who now runs the William Morris and Endeavor Agency as the president, he brought me on, they originally brought me on as an NBA analyst, put me on NBA Shoot-Around, which is now called NBA Countdown. But in April of 2005, I had finished negotiating a deal to start my own television show, quite frankly, on ESPN2. And I remember when I signed that deal, it was about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was at the ABC offices on 66th Street off Broadway. And I drove. The first thing that I did was leave and drive straight from there to Queens, New York, on 200th Street and 112th Avenue, right down the block from where I grew up. And my mother was working in there part-time, you know, doing some stuff in there, the bingo, all the ladies and everything like that, everything else she was doing. And she was working in there to have money because she had retired as a registered nurse after 25 years. She wanted to have a little bit of money to be able to go on cruises every year and stuff like that. And my proudest moment to this day in all my whole life is when I walked in there and I grabbed my mother and I looked at the boss and I said, my mother's not working anymore. And my mother never worked. She never worked another day in her life.
So, obviously, again, thank you for coming down here. I know it's not hard to convince you. Everybody knows that, you know, Stephen A. Smith always looks when he's used to come to South Beach, right? So I want to ask you this, man. You talked a little bit about some of those challenges, some of those things that you had to go through, right? And we'll give a little backstory because, you know, everybody sees the glory, but they don't know the full story. And you went a little bit about that, right? In 1992, you lost your brother, right, to a car accident, right? You started this whole journalism thing. You went to Winston-Salem University, you know, making $15,000 a year, eating tuna fish and Kool-Aid, right? You went from that to the Philadelphia Inquirer, right? And then from that, you became the NBA columnist, right? Then you got let go by the Inquirer in 2008, right?
2009 or so. They had new leadership, and what happened is that I'm still, believe it or not allowed to talk about it, but so much legally. But let me say this: when I was doing, quite frankly, and what have you, I was in New York City. I wanted to leave the Inquirer; they didn't want me to leave. So they kept me on board as a columnist, et cetera, et cetera. Well, new leadership came on board a few years later. And that new leadership didn't care about the agreement that I had had with the company. And I was like, listen, it makes perfect sense. Absolutely fine. Feel free to give me my severance package like you give everybody else. And the person in charge, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, he looked me in my face and he said, quote, "You've earned enough money." Now, everybody in here know what that means. Especially when, excuse my language, when you say some shit like that to a black man. I know exactly what he meant. He was not talking about the Philadelphia Inquirer. He was talking about, you earned enough. And I was like, somebody done told you wrong. And so that warfare was on arbitration. I ultimately won the arbitration, got my job back, and then ultimately left. But it was a fight that was worth fighting because a lot of times I'm not an advocate of I don't, Kobe, the late great Kobe Bryant, myself, Shaq, others that I know that I knew or know personally on that kind of personal level. I'm not one of those dudes that really, really is into the lawsuits. It's discrimination. It's this, it's that, because I understand the residual impact that it ultimately has on us. And when you go that route, you better win. You better win, because if you don't, it's a wrap, and it's just not worth it. But there were certain things that was worth fighting. The difference between my case and those of various others is that I wasn't fighting that kind of case. We had an agreement, and I'm like, honor the agreement. Just because you come in and you knew to all of this don't mean you get to ignore agreements that were in place. That was my argument, and the reason why that was important to make is because corporate America was receptive to that, and they didn't look at me as this black dude that's just gonna file a discrimination case against us. They didn't do that. They had to look at the facts, and the facts were we had an agreement, and you literally are trying to violate that agreement, and I ain't having it, and that's all it was. And so it taught me a great lesson, because it taught me the power of language. When you speak their language, whoever they are, they have no choice but to be receptive, because it's a language they provoked. If I go on there and it's emotional, and I get caught up in race, prejudice, discriminatory practices and stuff like that, not to say it doesn't exist, because we all know it does, but if I'm caught up in that, if you're on the other side, you're looking for a nugget of plausible deniability to exercise so you can circumvent and navigate your way through that terrain. But when I come to you speaking your language, now we got a problem. So the language was, we have an agreement. It's right here in writing. Your predecessors signed it. We all understood it. We know what the agreement is. What's up? You owe me this. And the reason why that was so profound, and it was something that I learned, because ultimately when I got let go by ESPN in 2009, I had to really crystallize in my mind, what is it that put me in this position where I'm making $1.3 million for 4 different jobs for ESPN, and then I literally wake up the next day, and by that afternoon, I'm making 0. Everything evaporated. What happened? What did I do wrong? What do I need to modify or rectify? What adaptation do I need to employ in order to position myself to take advantage of the opportunities that are going to come my way? And I realized they were right and I was wrong because I wasn't speaking their language. See, when people yelling my name in the streets, man, Stephen A., he that dude, and we see him on TV, and, the commercials, and people screaming his name when he walk into an arena, I thought that was popularity. I thought that was something I could monetize. And I found out during negotiations, hell no. That don't have anything to do with the focus groups. Doesn't have anything to do with the Q scores and the Q ratings. Doesn't have anything to do with the ratings and the revenue, whatever you're attached to generates. So when I went off the show thinking that I was free and I had the freedom to do an abundance of other things, what I gave up was a platform that provided appointment television. So you not only knew me, you knew where to find me, when to find me, how often to find me, etc. And based off of that, that could be monetized. And so because of that, all of a sudden, I said, okay, this is how it is. My definition of popularity isn't theirs. What is their definition of popularities? And how did I say they? Who's they? Whoever the hell has the money. That's who they are, all right? And who makes the decisions about how those dollars are allocated. So when I found out who they were, and I learned to define what their level of success, what their definition, rather, of success is, then I was able to say, okay, here we go. So instead of coming back, I came back with a radio show. Why? It was appointment viewing. You knew to find me at this time every day on this station. When I came to television, okay, I'm on this show. You knew where to find me here, at what time, what day. This is what it is. And from that perspective, I was able to peel the data they pay attention to as it pertains to revenue and ratings. And so when a negotiation came later on, in 2009, I was emotional. This is what I deserve. I work harder than everybody else. I work more hours than everybody else. I'm popular. People screaming my name in the streets. That was my definition of data. When I showed up to the negotiating table in 2015, these are the ratings for First Take. This is what they were in 2012 when I arrived. This is what they are now. I heard about your revenue, and I know you're not going to show it to me, but I got an agency representing me that got access to some of those numbers. This is what the revenue was then. This is what the revenue is now. Q scores, Q ratings. This is what my number is according to my representation. This is what the number is according to my agency about the other dudes that you have on the show with me. I am here. They are here. And oh, by the way, this is the money that they're getting. And this is the money I'm going to get it. Change needs to happen. And change happened.
Yeah. And it seems like you learned a lot through that process. Now, I know, like we were talking about some of those failures that you had to go through. How was that time for you from an emotional standpoint, right? You talked about the negotiation part of it, right? Yeah, the ups and downs, the tribulations, because we've got a lot of business people in here, and I think it's important for them to understand that they see you on TV, they see all the glory, but there were a lot of ups and downs through your career, right? The tragedies that you had to go through with your family and stuff like that. You know, what advice would you give to that young entrepreneur? You know, that young whippersnapper, like you say, wet behind the ears. You know, some breath smell like Similac.
Well. Number one, all that glitters ain't gold. And if you in it for the glitter, you don't deserve the gold. I'm going to repeat that. If you're in it for the glitter, you don't deserve the gold. I'm a small business owner now. I'm not just an employee and a star for ESPN. I own my own production company. I own my own podcast. I own it outright. It's not shared with anyone. RSS feed, masters, IP, that's all owned by me. I had to go through a lot to get that carved out in my deal to make sure that I was able to pull that off. It's a lot of hard work. You trust people to do a job. Some people did it well, some people didn't do it at all. They've been fired. They've been replaced. I don't enjoy saying that, but I don't give a damn. It's about winning. It's about you having demands that are met because your priority is winning. And you have to have folks who are like-minded, that are agenda-driven as it pertains to the bottom line. Nobody is saying to streamline, you know, your agenda, your wishes, your aspirations. Nobody is telling you to just think about somebody else and not think about yourself. We're human beings. Of course we're going to think about ourselves. Of course we're going to think about our own individual aspirations and what we want. But it can't be at the price of the bottom line. The bottom line is first. I just had a conversation with one of my employees yesterday. I said, you got a lot of aspirations, a lot of hopes. Let me be clear. I don't give a damn until you give me what I want and what I'm paying you for. You can't walk through the door with your hand out for somebody else's money to take from them and put their objective second to yours. You got to make sure that you produce for the people who are paying you first, because now it's an integrity play. I go to work every day, and I use this analogy when people call me sellout and all of this other stuff, and, you know, I tell them to kiss my ass. You know, the thing about it is I say that, and I'm defiant when I say those words out of my mouth because they're missing the big picture. When I make a statement, I wake up every day with two objectives: making my bosses more money and getting some of it. Why do I say that? It's not because I mean it literally. It's because it works. Tell me a boss that doesn't want to speak to somebody whose objective and priority is to make them money. As an employee, as somebody that has aspirations, as somebody that wants it all, whoever you may be, and I assume that's all of us in this room, the first order of business is as you ascend is to find champions on your behalf. Who's not going to want to champion you when you're championing them? Chances are they're going to want to listen. The worst thing you could do as an employee, as a talent, you could be, or anybody in a subordinate role, the worst thing you could do is be somebody who complains, but you're devoid of solutions. Any boss will despise you if you're devoid of solutions. If you have solutions, every boss will be receptive because it makes them look good. And when you have the mission and the vision and the selflessness to want to assist somebody in looking good, do you know what that makes you? Trustworthy. Because you're not just about you. Everybody knows you want something for yourself. But when you're the kind of person that knows how to put others first, that's when you position yourself for success. And oh, by the way, that's not just applicable to the workplace, that's applicable to our personal lives. What woman do you know that's happy with a man that don't think about nobody before himself? Any woman that's happy will tell you, the brother thinks about me. A man, we got a whole bunch of brothers up in here. We know how we can be, but when you got a woman that thinks about you and lets you feel as if you're first, even if you know you're not, you're like this. I got a good one. I got a good one right here. I might have to hold on to her. Because you're thinking about someone other than you. It's amazing how things in the business world and in the personal world can collide and maturate with one another to breed the same level of success and happiness.
All right, cool. I don't know if you guys love that answer. That's a great answer for me. For now, we're going to get into the book, right? You got the book, Straight Shooter. It's out in stores now for you guys if you guys want to read it. It's a great book. It's a memoir about your life, right? For those that don't know, you're a very private person, and you made a promise to your mom that you wouldn't write anything until after she unfortunately passed away in 2017, correct? Yeah. So now in that memoir, there are parts of it that you talk about those negotiations that you were just speaking about with ESPN. And there's a part later in the book, and I quote, you said, "I did the unthinkable as a black man," right? And I let ESPN pretty much value me without, me protecting myself, right? And I paraphrase. What exactly can you tell all these young people out here? I know you went into it a little bit, but about themselves and protecting themselves and valuing themselves so that they can make sure that they can get to another level in life or to a successful level in life, somewhat like what you did in yours.
Well, during the Ronald Reagan administration in the 80s, they came up with a good saying: trust but verify. Trust but verify. Now, we can interpret that as don't trust anybody. But when you don't trust anybody, you tend to wear that on your sleeve. And if you wear that on your sleeve, there's a blockage, a wall, figuratively speaking. It's almost palpable. You can feel it. You can damn near see it in certain people. That's problematic. You don't want to do that. But when you use the phrase trust but verify, you're saying, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, but I'm going to still double check and triple check because I'm not sure how right you are and whether or not you're serving my interests as much as you're serving yours. Be about you. Be about achieving. Be about being committed to putting your head down and doing the work and not worrying about the glitz and the glamour because it's going to come when you're successful. But at the end of the day, it's important that while you're doing that, you recognize the fact, especially as black people, most folks are going to be against you. You're going to have folks in white America who are against you to some degree because they want what they want. You're going to have folks who are against you who happen to be white for more insidious reasons. You're going to also have folks who happen to be white that are going to be for you right up until the moment you establish yourself as their equal or on their level. And all of a sudden, you're not looking up to them and they ain't going to take it right. And as a result of that, they might turn against you. And that's just wine, folks. Don't get me started with us as black folks, because there is no greater deterrent to our success than us. It's just the truth. And so when you see me going off and all of that other stuff, it's because I can. I have a platform, and ain't too many people on the air 10 hours live a week, 450 hours minimum live per year, spanning 45 weeks, who can say what the hell. I literally can wake up every morning and go like this, who pissed me off this morning? I literally can do that. I don't, but I can. And so to me, when something like that happens and you know you got that kind of influence and you got that kind of reach, you can be a bit judicious in choosing what path you want to take. But in the end, I'm thinking big picture. And what I would encourage everybody in this room is to do the same. Yes, I'm the #1 talent at ESPN. Yes, my show has been #1 for 11 and a half. April 1st will make 12 consecutive years, by the way. Okay? All of that's true. That is not where my aspiration lies. I want my production. I want to produce content, sitcoms, docuseries, television shows, drama series, film. I'm not playing. I'm going for it. I don't want a podcast. I want a show. What did I do? You got people sitting on the couch in front of a microphone, got a camera pointing at them, and they talking. I built my own studio. It opens in 2 weeks. I built my own television studio with my own dime. They call about sponsors, advertisers. Are you going to have any? I said, after I build my studio, because I want them to see aesthetically what I bring to the table. How many people are going to go out there and promote your product? How many people can you rely upon to show up to work every day and give their all? How many people can you rely upon to have the kind of influence and reach that I have? On ESPN alone, I generate over 2.4 billion views annually. I'm not playing. And so for me, that's how everybody in this room should be. Everybody in this room should be about committing themselves to the grind. I'm not, no matter how much you see me on TV, yo, bro, I'm the dude that got cussed out by my own lawyer because she took me, a black woman based out of D.C., took me to the White House Correspondents' Dinner a decade ago. I walked through the back door because I didn't want to do red carpet. She was furious. You are Stephen A. You have to do red carpet, and all of a sudden I got my assistant and my sisters, everybody. You got to do it. They truly know I don't care. I'm about the work. I'm about the results. You know how I enjoy the fruits of my labor? When I can go to any restaurant that I want, when I can go to any store that I want, when I can go to any car dealership that I want, when I can shop for a home anytime that I want to, when I can look at my 4 sisters, my 2 daughters, my 15 nieces and nephews, my friends, my family, my woman, whatever it is, and whatever they want, I can get them. That, to me, is how I enjoy the fruits of my labor. And to me, outside of those moments, I'm about the grind. I believe everybody's coming for me. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that's my attitude. Everybody's coming for me, and they have no idea what's in store for them when they try. That's how I am.
All right, we got a couple more minutes. I got about 2 more questions before Kanasha kicks me off. One of the last questions, obviously you've been in the room with the likes of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson. You're still good friends with Allen. You talk to him twice a month, right? What is the common trait that you would say that these individuals have that us here, business people in here, should have to help us get to that next level, to help us be successful?
An innate belief in themselves. and what they bring to the table. Now, obviously, Allen Iverson didn't maximize his potential because he endured very hard times and celebrated a bit too much once he overcame them, that he didn't maximize his potential the way a Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan did. Michael Jordan is somebody I speak to a lot. Kobe Bryant was somebody I spoke to a lot before he passed away, God rest his soul. We were together 3 weeks before he passed, for crying out loud. And what you see from greatness, a LeBron James, who I don't speak to that often, but I respect the hell out of him and what he brings to the table, they're absolutely right. There's a commitment to greatness. And because of that commitment to greatness, they fulfill the promises to themselves to be great because they know they made the necessary sacrifices. In the end, when you hear LeBron James talk, take 1,000 different things that he said. It all comes down to one thing to him. I took no shortcuts. Michael Jordan, I took no shortcuts. When you saw The Last Dance and that docuseries he did, when, remember the episode when he said, that's the way I play. If you don't like the way I play, don't play that way. And then he had to fight back tears, and he said, break. The reason why he was fighting back tears is because he knew the hits that he was taking throughout the years. And what he was saying is, I understand how others would feel differently, but you never won anything. And so to me, like-minded, you can be in this room. I'm certainly not putting myself in the category of greats like that, but I've established my own level of greatness in what I do. And I can tell you that I can be in a room with anybody in this room or anywhere else, and it don't take me more than 2 minutes to see whether somebody is real about their grind or whether they're full of it. And I have no patience nor any time for anybody who's full of it, because time is valuable. And I've been blessed and fortunate, and one of the people that I'm very close to that communicates with me a lot is Bob Iger, the CEO of Walt Disney. I don't call him my mentor. He said he's my mentor. He's the one that looks at me and holds me to a certain standard. I never asked him to. He just did it. All I asked him for one time was advice. And he gave me a mission. I didn't know at the time, but all he was looking for was to see if I followed through. If I didn't follow through, I'd have never had him on speed dial. I'd have never been able to talk to him. He does not have the time. And winners don't have time for people who are not committed to winning. And they know who you are when they see you and when they talk to you.
And I'll end it with this. You just talked about mentor. I mean, you're my mentor from afar. I'm sure you're mentors for a lot of people here. Last question. We ask everybody this every single year, right? You talked a little bit about your family, your 2 daughters, Samantha and Nyla. You talked about your mom, Miss Janice Smith, your sisters, Abigail, Linda, Carmen. What is it that you want your legacy to be? When it's all said and done, Stephen A. decides he doesn't want to work for ESPN. He doesn't want to be on the #1 show on ESPN. He just wants to chill in his home and go to the movies because you love to go to the movies. What is it that you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done?
It's changed over the years, but I will tell you where I'm at right now. And I've never said this publicly, so I'm going to say it publicly for the first time. I have found myself, I've been on this journey over the last 9, 10 months. I've lost 35 pounds.
You look good. You look good.
I'm in the best condition I've been in the last 25, 30 years. I had 2 rotator cuff surgeries. COVID nearly took me out. It was no joke. I had double pneumonia going at 90 minutes before New Year, for the new year coming into 2022. I'm in the hospital. They telling me, the steroid, this antibiotic don't work. We're going to have to call your family. It was that bad. It really, really was. And up until a few months ago, I could not run up the stairs without feeling like I ran 2 or 3 miles. It was that bad. And you could be big, you could be small. I don't believe there's anything nastier in the world than skinny fat. You know, when you just skin and bones, but your belly's big, that's just nasty. And that was me. That's not me now, but it was. I mean, I looked at my girl, I like, she really did love me. Damn, I mean, she didn't leave. But I will tell you, having said all of that, it's changed my thinking in this way. I find myself thinking, and I mean this sincerely, like damn near every day, if I passed away, there's going to be a lot of people at my funeral. You know, because the people that I work with, the people in my inner circle, the friends that I grew up with, the college buddies that I have, the inordinate amount of lives that have touched me, I've also touched. And there's an abundance of people who would vouch for my character. The fact that I truly rooted for them, I truly tried to support them, I tried to extend a helping hand to give back. And that's the way I am. I'm not trying to get too altruistic and trying to act like I'm something that I'm not. But the latest, for example, was me bringing Shannon Sharp to First Take. You know, he was supposed to be my competitor. He was supposed to be working at a rival network. But I knew that when FS1 let him go, that brother was in trouble because the networks were not going to hire him. He was going to have his podcast club, Shay Shay, but it ain't the same when you're exiled because it seems like nobody wants you. I was there in 2009. I didn't have a Stephen A. Smith, who was the executive producer of First Take, not just the talent, who was in a position to talk directly to the bosses and influence change or influence his arrival. And there were people like, yo, man, he could come there. Hell, he might be so big, he might end up taking your job and all of this other stuff. And I swear to you, I didn't care. I'm like, I believe in my skill set. I ain't worried about anybody taking what I got. And if somebody's going to take it, it's going to be because of a bureaucracy that wants to make different decisions. It ain't going to be because they better, because I believe I'm the best. But in the end, I cannot tell you what it has done for my heart to know that he's shining because I helped get him to ESPN, that Ryan Clark is shining because of the Pivot podcast and hosting Inside the NFL and all of that, that Dan Orlovsky is shining because he's doing Monday Night Football, that Mad Dog Russo's had his career resurrected because he's on First Take, because Amina Kimes and a Kimberly Martin and a Monica McNutt and a Molly Karam and all of these people are benefiting. I'm not saying I'm the core reason, but I had a lot to do with that. And for me to know that I've helped so many people, that I got a brother overseeing First Take that's an executive VP at ESPN, that I've got coordinating and senior coordinating producers who are black, that I got contributors who are black, that I've got women in black and white and beyond. And I have played a major role in facilitating that level of diversity. It is something that truly, truly touches my heart because at the end of the day, there's no success without a successor. And if you have no successors, that means you didn't care to have any because you were too busy thinking about yourself that you weren't thinking about helping others. The fact that I could pass away someday and knowing that that's something that cannot be said about me does my heart good. That's the legacy I want.
Nice. And it's good that you help Shannon and all these guys. And like you said, you know, it's okay to be cocky as long as it's about the work you put in and not the abilities you possess. And I think that speaks volumes for you. I think you're a true inspiration for me and for other individuals in here. I know you look up to a Stuart Scott and a John Saunders and a Chris Berman and a Bob Costas. But like I said,
Mike Wilbon,
yes, pardon interruption. So I think it's fair for me to say for everybody in here, you're a true inspiration for everybody in here, a true inspiration for me. We appreciate you coming down here, coming down to South Beach. I know you love it down here. We appreciate it, man.
I do love it down here.
Yes, we know. And hopefully we'll see you again soon, my brother, and keep doing your thing, keep shining, keep helping other brothers, keep helping people, putting people on, man. You're a true inspiration, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Demesmin and Dover Law Firm. Demesmin and Dover Law Firm.
Hello.
All righty. At first, we were worried about time, but Stephen A. is being so generous and allowing you guys to have Q&A. So we have the mics are positioned. There's one right there. There's stand-up mics. All right, so if you have your question, please make it your way over to the stand-up mics that we have around. We are going to take 3 questions. All right.
Take any questions. Let's roll.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Until my assistant tells me we have to go, I'm straight. You know, she's the boss. I have no rights whatsoever. When she tells me I have to go, I gotta go.
All
5 questions? 5 questions?
No, 5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes. Well, damn. Okay, go ahead.
Is there anyone at the question stand?
Yes,
oh,
go
there
ahead.
you go. The mic
Don't
is
worry
over
about
there.
it. I'll
Okay.
repeat your question. It's no big deal.
No, he's coming. He's coming. There you go.
Thank you. Before I ask the question, I need to introduce myself. My name is Morel Collin. I am 23 years old, but I am the youngest to ever do it this big. I am a law student. I have my own nonprofit organization dedicated to children who are going through bullying, trauma, abuse, anxiety, and I am working with a lot of organizations in Broward County, as well as Dillard Elementary School, Joe Joe's Children's Hospital, as well as Ascend Academy. Ultimately, I am asking you a question about faith. I am pursuing at such a young age. I literally am just like walking in blind faith. But like you said, if we're not in it for the gold, then we don't deserve. I guess my question is just more so like, when did you know that this was your purpose? And of course, you're pursuing, you've persevered, you've gotten to where you have to be at. But when did you know it was your time?
The moment I went after it. Because I don't go after anything that ain't aimed to fail. And you also have to understand that there's roadblocks. Like, for example, you just talked about some of the things that you've accomplished and the youngest to ever do it. You should be incredibly proud of yourself. But hold on. But be very worried. You know why?
Why?
Because you just told everybody. And hold on. No, I'm just answering your question because I only got 5 minutes, so other people got to speak. But let me explain. I want you to be careful because I want you to understand that the people in this room are incredibly supportive of you. The real world is not. They're coming. And when you're young, what you want to do is you don't want to let them see you coming sometimes. So you want them to recognize your gifts, your greatness, and the potential that you could bring to the table. But you don't want to be so glaring with it that they find themselves worried about your product, your productivity, because they think it will potentially get in the way of their own. And as a result, they feel threatened by you and they create roadblocks. One of the things that I tell young people in this industry is one of the, and you did not do this, so I'm not talking about you, but it's one of the stupidest things. Young kids come up to me and say a lot of times, Mr. Smith, I'm coming to take your job. And I always pull them to the side. Come here. Now, why would I let you do that? That's just dumb. What you do is you aim to position yourself that you'll be recognized for your talents and your greatness so somebody else will say, you can have Stephen A's job. Not tell Stephen A. Because if I saw you through the walls of ESPN and I was insecure and I was willing to maneuver my way through the terrain in an unsavory way, I'd roadblock you. That's what happens in corporate America. Let's be very, very careful about what we're willing to tell people about ourselves while we're en route to a path before we actually get there.
Okay.
Stephen A., we're going to do one more question because they told me you got press.
Okay. Press, that's why I got to wait. I'm taking 3 questions. Go ahead.
All right. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Gene.
Press understands you hurry up and wait. There's a person in the press that don't know that. Go ahead.
All right, my name is Gene Pierre. I'm a double major at Florida Atlantic University, currently majoring in biology and neuroscience and behavior. My question to you is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
To my younger self?
Yeah.
Be more informed than arrogant. I didn't know my value. So because I didn't know, someone else got to determine what that value was, because there was no intel to contradict what they were putting out there. The other thing that I would say is every youngster, if you don't major in it, you should minor in business. If I had to do it all over again, I would have done that. Why minor in business? Because everything comes down to it. Right now, we're on television. Yes, you can look at First Take, and First Take has been successful. We've seen the reports. Even while Disney and the earnings report was better than expected, even after laying off or letting go or making cuts along the 7,000 range, because you had to make up for $5.5 billion in losses. We're still planning on cutting some more. And we ain't the only one. Meta did it, Amazon did it, Apple did it, everybody's done it. It's business. And what you have to do is follow what's going on in the world of business. Pay attention to the stock market. Pay attention to the economy. Understand what a recession is. Know it. Know what's coming. Foreshadow. Why? Because that's what they do. If they're foreshadowing, it doesn't matter what you think you know. It doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what you think you bring to the table. Make no mistake. I'm Stephen A. I'm getting paid a decent salary. I'm good. They will cut my ass in a heartbeat. They probably might. I don't underestimate anything. I might be out on the streets with a lot of folks in a year or two looking for opportunities. I doubt it, but it's possible. No matter what it is, I'm going to be prepared to fight the next fight, because I anticipate that under no circumstances am I to take anything for granted. I know where the potential minefields lie. Business helps me do that. Read the Wall Street Journal, read the Washington Post, read the Financial Times. Pay attention to your industry, whatever your industry entails. That is the key. All of that falls in line with my initial answer to your question. I appreciate it. Last question. Go ahead.
How you guys doing? My name is Amari. First of all, thank you for giving us the time to giving us your time, and thank you guys for putting on this great event. I have a question about personal brand. Although you're on national network TV shows like ESPN, you've had your own show. Why have you decided to go outside of your nationally recognizable TV appearances and shows on a daily basis to go outside and create your own podcast, create your own content? And why is it important for people like us in this room who may have jobs that we don't control, are technically on our own destiny, to go and create content outside of where we currently are? And what's the value of creating content and building our own brand outside of where we particularly are?
Number one, you want to be versatile. You don't want to be one-dimensional. Because if you're one-dimensional and there's somebody that's critical of the one dimension that you're engulfed in, then you out of luck because you didn't diversify your portfolio enough to showcase other assets that you could potentially bring to the table. That's the answer to the first question. Number two, I wanted ownership. I didn't want to be an employee. I still don't. I'm an employee of ESPN. I just carved out my own thing. But in the future, my hope is not to be an employee at all. That may be one of the biggest reasons why my days at ESPN may be numbered. Because I have strong aspirations to create content, to own my own product, and to produce and lease content for people like ESPN and various others. I want to be able to do that. Now, why does Stephen A. want to do that? Yes, I want to show my creativity and my innovative skills. Yes, I want to elevate my business acumen. All of those things are true. But do you know the number one reason that despite the headaches that turn into migraines at times, that keeps me up at night, the mundane conversations that I have to have when my phone is ringing and my daughters are looking at me, we're just disgusted. I mean, why don't you just come back when you're free? Okay? Teenage daughters now, this is not good. Okay, I got a lot of making up to do because they are pretty ticked at me because of my lack of availability over the last 3 weeks. But that's a subject for another day. The point I'm making to you is the number one reason why I love ownership is because of my access to the data and the intel that defines and crystallizes and illuminates my own worth. When you're an employee, you are what they say you are. They're not coming to the negotiating table and telling you, here's your Q scores, here's your numbers, here's the revenue you generated, anything. All they're saying is, we think you're worth this. Do you think you're worth that? Well, let's fight about it. And we'll reach an accord or we don't. That's all they're doing. But when you are an owner, you have access. Me owning my podcast, it's not just about some ad, some sponsor saying, oh my God, we want Stephen A. Well, how much money are you willing to give me? Well, why are you willing to give me this, but you was willing to give this brother that? That brother got those numbers. I've got these numbers. This brother's on the air this amount of time. I'm on the air this amount of time. This brother's getting himself in a world of trouble. I've been pretty pristine. I understand you can sit up there and look at controversy, but what kind of controversy are we really talking about? The kind of controversy where it's a sports betting company, or it's Coca-Cola or Pepsi, or it's Target, or it's Walmart. The list goes on and on. It could be a bank like Citicorp or JP Morgan Chase. It could be anything. I'm qualified to represent anybody because of the work that I've done, the numbers that I've produced, the manner in which I conduct myself. On top of it all, the effect I have on Wall Street, because if you're looking at Disney and they're saying, well, wait a minute, ESPN is doing X, Y, and Z. Well, on the surface, it may look different because I'm just one of many, over 2,000 or 3,000 on-air talents. That may be true. But in an age where linear television's audience is dissipated from 112 million to 90 to 80, now to 70, projected to be at 50 by the year 2030, if not earlier, with an audience that's going to digital and streaming, a linear television show has been up in the ratings month over month for 16 consecutive months as the audience fades. You know that when you're an executive producer. You know that when you're an owner. You know that when you hire people that have access to data to give you the intel to buffer your knowledge about your business. That's why I love being an owner. Because you don't get to lie to me as easily as you once did if you're corporate America. Now you got to deal with the fact that I got access to more intel than I've ever had before. And instead of bloviating about what I'm worth, I don't have to say a word. All I have to do is pull out a folder and show you the numbers, which you already have. That's the game. That's the game. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate the love. Thank
Give it
y'all
up
for
for
having
Stephen A.
me.
Smith, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
LL Cool J is hard as hell. Battle anybody, I don't care, you tell. I excel.